makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part.
Hello, everyone, and I have news for you. I have finally left London permanently. I'm not coming back except for occasional holiday. And one of the major reasons why I'm not going back is because the country has turned into a complete shit show, political and economic shit show. And if you have to follow one country in the world right now, one country's politics right now, make it the UK, because it's incredibly fun in a very depressing sort of way, because it seems to just not hit rock bottom. I mean, this is a political crisis that has deepened since the Brexit referendum, and it is just not ending. Every new prime minister is worse than the one before them. The degree of just a complete dissociation from reality in political discourse is absolutely stunning. I mean, this is like third world levels of political discourse, and I should know because that's the discourse that I'm used to hearing in Latin America. So, were it not for the fact that Britain is one of the richest countries in the world, you would think that this is a third world country. Just how politics is being done, what the language of politics is being used. And well, part of this, like I said, I mean, I would say part of it, I would say the original sin of this is Brexit, obviously. Since Brexit, it's just been downhill. And we have to remember that Brexit is fundamentally a racist project. It is a project of the far right wing of the Tory party. Wanted to use Brexit as an excuse to close Britain's borders to immigration. That is the whole point. Everything else, the supposed benefits that Brexit was going to bring, were secondary to the single objective of not getting immigrants in. And the whole point of that, so that's like the ulterior motive, but there's an ulterior motive to the ulterior motive, which is to maintain the right in power. And to do this through the discourse of anti-immigration. And the reason why they know this works is because, well, Britain is a pretty damn racist country. I was privileged to have lived in London, which is a multicultural city. You don't really see the racism, certainly on a day-to-day basis. Like personally, it doesn't affect me. But it's when you sort of see how the rest of the country speaks about people that you realize just the extent of how bad the situation is. And yesterday, or was it 2 days ago, I don't know, there was a caller on the LBC, and the LBC has no shortage of lunatics calling in, like very, very racist lunatics. But I think this caller in particular wins the award for most batshit insane racist caller that I have ever seen. And I'm very glad that the LBC is also quite right wing. For the most part, most of its presenters are quite wing. Nick Ferrari, Ian Dale, these other clowns. They do have a handful of people who are left leaning, or at least not that racist. So or not that right wing. So I'm kind of glad that this call was made to someone, Sanjita Miska, who did push back on it. Because otherwise, I'm pretty sure that someone like Ian Dale or Nick Ferrari would have just laughed it off. So let's listen to this conversation. It is stunning, absolutely stunning.
Hi, great show, by the way.
Thank you.
Let me just say first, I am a Tory party member, and my dad was a constituency chairman. And we support Boris, and I'd say, in my estimate, 80% of the members support Boris.
So, first and foremost, the obvious, this video is already obsolete in the sense that Boris Johnson has recently announced that he is not actually going to compete for the leadership. But as of yesterday, it was kind of a given that he was going to run. And it was was more likely to be, I mean, I think he had a really damn good chance. I mean, I was really genuinely scared that he would come back as prime minister. But anyway, that part of the conversation is obsolete.
So that's where we're at. And our perspective is different to, the media perspective, the markets. Both my daughters work in the city. There's a lot of AI algorithms coming from abroad, tampering with the markets. Now, we can't let the markets and the media run our country.
So the reason that the British economy was on the verge of collapse and this guy's pension was on the verge of disappearing was not because the markets have some agenda against the government. Quite the contrary. The government, like every, batshit insane third world country, or batshit insane fiscally irresponsible third world country, decided that it was going to spend billions and billions and billions of pounds on tax cuts and energy subsidies without any plan on how it was going to finance them. And they deliberately avoided having an independent analysis of their mini budget by the Office of Budget Responsibility, whatever it's called, that would have given, like I said, an unbiased assessment on what this was going to cost the country. So markets reacted the way that they react to any country that has a crazy, expensive agenda that they have no idea how they're going to fund, right? And to the extent that maybe this was an overreaction of the markets, I would say, well, yeah, because let's be honest, Britain isn't really going to go into a default. It could print its own currency. It's still, for all its problems, it's a G7 country. Its debt to GDP ratio is quite high. It's around 100%, but it's not as high as some other countries like Italy or Japan. So it has some advantages in that respect. But it's what they don't understand is that it wasn't just a combination. It wasn't just about not knowing how they were going to fund it. It was just a complete political fiasco this country has been embroiled in for the past couple of months, if not years. So it's fiscal irresponsibility at a time of deep political crisis. That's the problem. I think if this had been a moment of political stability, if it was a government that people had confidence in, and they put out an agenda that was, unfunded to some extent, I don't think the markets would have reacted as viciously as they did in this situation, not against a country like Britain. So it's not these mysterious algorithms, it's not a market agenda against Britain. They behaved like a third world country, and they got punished by markets like a third world country would.
It's a democracy. We are the voters, and we support Boris. So we want Boris.
So, first of all, it's not a democracy because the British people are not going to vote for Boris this time around. Okay, so this is going to be the second straight government that Britain has, where only a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage of people, which is just registered Tory voters, are going to vote. So that automatically disqualifies you as a democracy.
Back, and Boris has the best chance of winning the general election next time. So Rishi's not going to win it. Rishi's not even British, in most people's opinion.
Boom. Here we go with the racism. He's not even British, according to most people. So look at what he did. He was like, this guy, and he's going to do it repeatedly in this interview. He's going to deflect any criticism that he is the racist by saying, like, this is just a general opinion. I'm not saying what I think. I'm just telling you what all the other Tory voters I know think. So he might not be a racist, but he's surrounded by racism. And I find it hard to believe that someone who is not a racist will be so, easily in the company of so many racists.
He's not. He's got American allegiance. His family's American. They're Indian business people. He'll go and live in America, no doubt.
Same as Boris Johnson, who was born in New York. Same as Winston Churchill, I should add, the most British of British prime ministers, who was half American as well. Clearly, this is only an excuse to question their Britishness. White.
He doesn't love England like Boris does.
Boris Johnson was hanging out with members of the Russian FSB. Okay? Cavorting with Russian oligarchs. Happy to sell any British asset to the Russians, to the Chinese, to Malaysians, anywhere. Boris Johnson does not like Britain at all. Okay? Let's get this out of the way. He's not a patriot. He's not a nationalist. Boris Johnson just cares about himself and cares about his money.
Okay. Jerry, to my knowledge, Rishi Sunak was born in the UK. He went to Winchester School, which, as you know, is a long-established public school in this country. As I understand it, he was born at Southampton General Hospital.
Well, can I just say, one of my mates, I was in the military, one of my mates was born in Uganda. He's white as the driven snow, and he's English as English can be. He's not African, is he? Because he's...
All right. So I don't know what the context of this guy's friend is. Maybe he was just like randomly born in Uganda and then lived most of his life abroad. A white South African is African. I mean, there's no question about this. He's African. I mean, African is not a race. African is really just like a blanket statement. It's sort of like, the general region of the world that you were born in or live in, or you have, some sort of ties to. That's what makes you an African. It's not really a race, is it? I mean, is he black? Then you wouldn't call him African. It's like racist to call someone African these days. This is really weird. Like I said, if he was from South Africa, yeah, he would be an African. So I don't get why. I mean, the guy's just racist. Okay, period. Racist.
Born in Uganda. That doesn't mean anything.
No, sorry. I'm just picking up I'm just picking up on the fact that you suggested that Rishi Sunak isn't British or English and doesn't love the country as much as Boris Johnson as a result. So I just want to clarify that with you, that he was born in this country, that he went to one of the country's most prestigious public schools, that he has worked, of course, in the city and then took up politics, that he is the man that many people credit through the furlough scheme, saved the economy. And you don't think that proves that he's British?
Holds a green card. His wife and the family business, their fortune. His wife.
Hang on. He's relinquished the green card, first of all.
True,
and quite rightly.
He had to relinquish it. His wife is not British. She holds American citizenship.
But he himself is a British citizen, isn't he?
Okay, lots of people are. Half of Al Qaeda are British citizens. You don't understand how.
I'm so sorry. Can I just be very clear here? Because I just want to be clear that I've actually heard you correctly. Have you just likened Rishi Sunak, the former Chancellor, and possibly the next Prime Minister, to a member of Al Qaeda?
Shemaine, I'm just saying, having a British passport doesn't mean you're a true English patriot who loves England.
Apparently, though, being white automatically does it? That's what he's implying. So you can be like Boris Johnson, someone who doesn't care about the country at all, is happy to sell it off to whatever foreign interests. That he's still a patriot because he's white. That's the only difference.
Boris loves England, and Rishi Sunak will be decimated if he leads the Tories into the election. I'm just telling you what Tory voters believe. He will.
Again, I'm not racist. I'm just hearing this from other racists.
Be decimated. He didn't even get barely 40% of Tory members, let alone the electorate. He'll get about 20% of the electorate.
You're aware that Boris DeFeffel Johnson was born in New York, aren't you?
That's what I'm saying. You can be born anywhere. You know that. It's how your allegiance lies to the country. I said one of my best mates was born in Uganda.
What do you expect? I'm absolutely fascinated here. What do you expect Rishi Sunak, former Chancellor, British citizen, someone educated in this country, someone credited with saving thousands of businesses through furlough, someone who has dedicated his life, according to many of his backers, 100 of them, 100 MPs now. What more would you like to see him do to prove his Britishness to you, Jerry? What?
This is a very good way to frame it, I would say. Like, very, very good way to frame it, because it forces the other guy to basically give a situation in which he would admit that what he doesn't want to admit could be true. So what is the threshold upon which you would consider Rishi Sunak to be British? And if you answer that there isn't one, then it's clearly not, your position is not based on anything other than the fact that he's brown. Because otherwise you could say, well, I wish he had done this, I wish he had done that. This is my threshold for what I consider to be a real Brit, a real patriot. And this standard that I'm applying is even regardless of who is taking this test. So you could have white people who aren't British enough, according to him, or you could have, obviously, for brown people or black people who aren't British enough. But it would be the same standard for everyone. But let's see what he answers.
What would it take?
Well,
what is the final thing that you think will make him British? And British enough precisely for Tory members like you to vote for him?
Well, his family are still, their money and their taxes are still in India and America for a start. So you can ignore that if you want. That's
Actually,
fine.
Since the scandal, his wife, as I understand it, has given up her non-dom status and will be paying tax. Her tax affairs have been regularised. So we've just removed two of your main concerns, which is where was he born, the fact he's got a British passport. We've also now dealt with the issue that he's relinquished his green card and his wife has now regularised her tax affairs. What else does he need to... Now, we've dealt with all of those things, Jerry. What I'd like to know is, because you say that you represent the average Tory member, what I'd like to know is, what do you think Rishi Sunak needs to do to prove his Britishness to the point where you believe Tory members would vote for him?
I don't doubt he's British, don't get me wrong.
You said he doesn't... Hang on. You said he doesn't love his country.
England.
He doesn't love England.
His family, his business, they seem to be globalists. They don't seem to love England. And you point out the furlough. Well, we actually see it differently. He gave away £400 billion and practically bankrupted our economy over the idiotic furlough payment.
He did not bankrupt the economy. That's factually incorrect. He did not bankrupt the economy. Also, may I ask you... Hang on.
Liz Truss was much closer to bankrupting the British economy than Rishi Sunak was as Chancellor. And, I have very serious criticisms of Rishi Sunak. I do not want to see him as Prime Minister, although apparently that is now an inevitability. But I think they made some very serious mistakes during the COVID period. But to go so far as to say, like, what this guy's saying is he didn't. That's just factually incorrect. He didn't do that.
Jerry, as we carry on, this is very important, Jerry. As we carry on this conversation, please don't use the phrase globalist again, because many of my Jewish listeners will find that incredibly offensive, because it has also been used at times as a racist put down to the Jewish community. So carry on, Jerry.
I definitely agree that anyone in any political discussion who brings out the term globalist, their opinions on any issue can be discarded, like just off the bat, whether they're left or right. I mean, if you believe this sort of globalist conspiracy theory, because it is a conspiracy theory, and it is a very anti-Semitic one. It's not to say that there isn't, the thing about how the world works is that you don't need a conspiracy theory to describe it. It's very open. It's very obvious who runs the world. I mean, it's a very small group of countries and a very small group of very powerful and very rich people. to imagine these people like in a darkened, smoke-filled room, and more importantly, that most of them are Jews, which is the implication of the term globalism, is just wrong. It's just wrong.
If you wouldn't mind
That's
answering...
not true. That's not true. I don't mean Jewish. If I meant Jewish, I'd say Jewish.
I did
Globalist
not...
is somebody who has
Jerry,
international...
once more, I'm going to give you one more chance. I have explained to you that many members of the Jewish community are offended by that phrase. Please do not use it. Please answer my question. You say that you represent the average Tory party member.
He does. I genuinely think he does. That is the average Tory member. It's not everyone who votes Tory. I don't think everyone who votes Tory is a raging racist. A lot of them are just fucking stupid, or just fucking assholes. Because conservatism is the ideology of assholes. But this is, if you are a card-carrying Tory voter, I genuinely think this guy is much closer to the average than to the moderate extreme of it. Because the left extreme of the Tory party is at best like a traditional center right. That's like the moderate, but that's an extreme. That's like the far left of the Tory party these days. But this guy is the average. He definitely is.
Say they did not vote for Rishi Sunak because he does not love England in the way that Boris Johnson loves England. Please answer my question. What do you think Rishi Sunak could do to prove his love of the country, Jerry?
Nothing, because he will lose 80% to 20% if he stands in any vote against real...
He didn't answer the question. Well, he said nothing, basically. No, he did answer the question. He basically said you can't do anything to prove that you're British. But then he changed it, saying that apparently now the condition is that you need to win an election, which clearly isn't. But yeah, glad he was honest about that. There is nothing, absolutely nothing, that Rishi Sunak, a brown British person, can do to prove that he is sufficiently British. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the epitome of being a racist.
Electorate.
Is the real problem here, Jerry, that Rishi Sunak is a brown man and you don't trust him at the top of this country?
Well, could you imagine him going to the Scottish Nationalists and being the Prime Minister of the Scottish Nationalists? Could you imagine me becoming the Prime Minister of Pakistan?
Hey, if this guy was born in Pakistan, he had Pakistani citizenship, maybe to British parents, and he was white as snow, but he grew up in Pakistan. He met all the requirements to being the Prime Minister of Pakistan. Yeah, why not? Just why not? I mean, most countries do not have a race requirement to be an elected official. So, in countries where you have a degree of multiculturalism, it's a matter of time. Someone who isn't of the dominant ethnicity becomes the leader of that country. So yeah, definitely could be in a different world in which he was born and raised in Pakistan. Yeah, he could be PM.
Saudi Arabia. No, these things matter. I'm sorry you don't like it, but this is a predominant...
Also, like, the examples that he gives, like Saudi Arabia, you really want to give that as an example of a country? I mean, first of all, he could not be the leader of Saudi Arabia because he's not born into the Saudi monarchy. Just very simple as that. For the same reason that he also could not be the head of state of the United Kingdom because he is not one of the Windsors. So, just bad examples.
We're talking about England, right? 85% of the English people, yes, are white English people, and they want to see a prime minister that reflects them. It's like if I can't just go to India and be the president there, can I?
So if Britain has a female prime minister that only represents 50% of Brits does it. But that has clearly happened. So I'm sure this guy's a big Thatcher fan. Why should we have female prime ministers? They only represent half the country. Flip side, why do we have male prime ministers? They only represent the other half. Makes no sense.
So just to be really clear here, Jerry, you, and as a self-appointed representative of Tory party members, because you say that your father was one, you are one, I don't know if your daughters are, you are suggesting a couple of things here. One, that you can only be English if you're white, and the thing that stops you voting for Rishi Sunak, should the decision go out to the membership, the thing that would stop you and other Tory party members voting for Rishi Sunak is the colour of his skin. Have I understood that correctly?
No, you've completely twisted it. What I said is,
I don't
English
think I have
people-
twisted it.
You have twisted. Oh, let me tell you what I think. My reason for not backing Rishi is that he destroyed our economy in the COVID crisis.
I think
right?
you're losing this argument, Jerry. I think you are fundamentally a racist. And it's absolutely fascinating to me to hear that you and other Tory party members think like this. And do you know what? I think we're going to turn this into a phone-in tomorrow. Why don't we do that? Why don't we open the phone lines? Because I'd be very interested, Jerry, to hear from more people like you. Joe?
Wow. There you go. That is the average Tory voter. But, you know, he's probably sad today that Boris pulled out of the race. Probably the only thing that he's ever pulled out of in his life. Yeah, I think we're going to have a brown prime minister, which is probably the only positive thing I have to say about Rishi Sunak becoming PM. I think he's a horrible person. I think he's just continuing a standard of disaster that is ongoing, and nothing he does will really change that. Will he be better than Liz Truss? I think definitely Liz Truss hit the bottom of just how bad things could go, how bad you could be as a PM. But to think that Rishi Sunak is really going to, you know, prevent the ship from sinking, even in the next, I mean, they still have 2 years left until the next election, unfortunately. I don't think there's a way for the Tories to remain in power. And to be honest, I think the real democratic outcome of this should be a general election. Because, I mean, and I think there probably should be some rule established at some point that you can't just have two straight governments that haven't been elected by the people. This is just not a democracy. Yeah, Britain is not a democracy right now. It isn't. So, yeah, in the meantime, Jesus Christ, like I said, tons of racist callers on the LBC. You know, they seem to always call, what's his name, James O'Brien, because he's always, you know, trashing the Brexiteers, and they always get mad and they always call back. But this one, I think, is the most openly racist guy on the LBC. And I'm glad that she called him out on it. I'm glad that she did not mince words. I'm glad that she openly said, "You are a racist," and pushed back on most of his talking points. So that's what journalists should do. Yeah. Well, on that note, thanks for watching. Sorry for the bad lighting, my current temporary setup. I am not in London anymore. I'll be back in Mexico in a few weeks, so you're going to have the traditional progressive TV background in a bit. But yeah, I'll try to do more videos on a regular basis these next 3 weeks. So yeah, that is the state of Britain. And if you ask me, why did you leave Britain? Well, if I'm going to live in a failed state, at least I'll live in one that has better weather and better food. So, see you next time. And don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe.